I'm Annie Flath, and I go to Heights we meet at the high school here in Columbia Heights. I have lived in Minnesota for a number of years, started going to the downtown location in 2007, and have kind of been at Hope or various church plants of Hope for the last, 14 years or so. I grew up in foster care. I kind of started through foster care with my biological siblings. I had 3 of them. I was the youngest. And of course, going through foster care, you hear a lot of different messages, some positive, some negative. And then as you kind of go through that, you start to really just sink it into your identity and think that that's who you are and that's all you're ever going to be. And as I went, the longer I was in foster care, I got to the point where I really heard the message that I was too much and not enough all at the same time. And that was really hard to hear as a child who wanted a family, didn't have a family, and being the youngest, I was the last one to be adopted in my bio family, which is very unusual. Typically, the youngest goes first because most families want to have a young child and raise the child from very young. And so being the last one to be adopted, for me, it kind of solidified that message that I am too much to handle and also not enough because I'm not enough for someone to want me. And so as I was hearing that message, I experienced just a lot of different types of abuse, whether it was verbal or physical. And even when I was 5 years old, I had this very strong sense of being what was right and what was wrong. And when I was 5, I spent, I think maybe it was half of my school year trying to convince my teacher that our foster family was abusive to us and physically hurting us. And they didn't believe me because the family was a very well-known family in the community, and they'd been doing foster care for 20 years. There's no way this is true. This can't be accurate. And it finally came to a head when it became very apparent. I just showed up one day at school with lots of welts and bruises all over. And then it was finally clear that was happening. And then we got taken away and we got brought to a new place. And the very next place we went to was just amazing. It was the first time I'd experienced a family that was I didn't have to be anything than just a kid. I got to play in the mud, and we got to have make Rice Krispie treats with Fruit Loops instead of the Rice Krispies, which I'd never had before, and I thought that was amazing. And we got to even name their kittens. They got farm cats to kind of hunt and stuff, and so we got to name the kittens. And so while I was there for only a short period of time, I got to kind of experience kindness and love in a way that I hadn't before. And so that was sort of my first glimpse, I think, at people being kind and not expecting anything from me to be able to receive that. And so I kind of fast forward a little bit. I did eventually get adopted when I was 10. And when I was 10, I moved in with my adoptive family, and my mom was just very adamant that I was enough, that I didn't need to be anything more than I was. And she, I think, was the first person that was very insistent that I was not stupid and that I could do it, and I could do school well, I could do really well, and I could be a part of different sports, and I could actually be just a kid and not feel like I had to worry about if I said the wrong thing or if I did the wrong thing. And so even when I was receiving that message from my mom, I still didn't really believe it. It's I heard it, but it wasn't sticking. And I think that took me a really long time to get past that. And I still felt like if I say the wrong thing, if I do the wrong thing, I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to be taken away. They're going to say, "Oh, I don't want you anymore." And so I just kind of lived with that and that sense of fear for a really long time. And then when I got into high school, we had this youth group leader who she was sharing her testimony on stage. We had a we went to a retreat at a Y, and I don't know what it was that she shared, but suddenly it actually clicked that not only did I not have to earn it, I couldn't earn it. And it was just a free gift. And I didn't have to be more. I didn't have to clean myself up. I didn't have to be the perfect child. I didn't have to be the perfect Christian to receive his free gift. And it was, I just like burst out in tears because I was like so just overwhelmed with a sense of peace and just relief. Because really up to that point, like while I had been going to church and I had been exposed to it, I could not fathom the idea that you would go to heaven and you would have fun worshiping God. I was like, in my mind, I was thinking, that just seems like such a selfish God. Why would he want that? And why would anybody want to do that for all of eternity? But at the same time, I still wanted this salvation. I still wanted to go to heaven. I still wanted that. But I still wrestled with this idea that why would you ever, like, it didn't connect for me. And so when I finally became an actual Christian and really felt like I understood it and connected with it, it was really interesting because when I went up and I shared with the youth leader that I had given my life to Christ, she just was like, oh, I thought you were already a Christian. And I was like, oh, that's not good. Because I think of Paul when he went through and he talked about how he'd done all of these things and he was like the perfect Jewish man and followed all of the custom, followed all of the laws to the nth degree, all of these things. And it was a performance base, like earning his right to be wherever it was within the Jewish community. And I was kind of doing the same thing, just kind of putting on this like, okay, if I do this, if I read my Bible this many times, if I journal this many times, if I do all of these things, I will be the quote unquote perfect Christian, perfect daughter. And so when I became a Christian, I really started to realize that that was not what I needed to do and I didn't have to. And so it was interesting because I feel like I became a little bit more rebellious after that, because suddenly I went from being this child that wanted to earn my place and have my place and didn't want to ruffle feathers to suddenly I realized I didn't need to do those things to earn my place. So then I became more rebellious than I was before, which I'm sure my parents didn't appreciate, but hopefully they understood. And so as I'm going through this, I'm still in the back of my mind feeling like I am not quite understanding all of the blessings of God. Like I'm still hanging my hat on like, okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And then switching to now pursuing God rather than just focusing on the gift that he gives, but then instead switching it to, I want to pursue him and I want to give my life over to him, and not just the sense of I receive a gift, but in the sense that he can use me to bless other people and to care for other people and to bring him glory in whatever means that might look like. And so, but in order to get there, I had to really let go of my own baggage. And I had to work through a lot of forgiveness for all of the past hurts so that I could leave myself space. And it wasn't then clouding like my perception, and it was like kind of blocking, I think, God's use of me in things, because I was just like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not comfortable with that. Or, oh, I really need to like build up my exercise in this. And I still was trying to perform to make it perfect in the way that I was used by God rather than just being myself. And so, yeah, I think just as I'm looking over the last couple of years, now that we've been married for several years now, but even after, like once my husband and I got married, I think that's when I started to really see gospel and community come out. Because with when we got married, well, actually, when we first started dating, I think it was like a month into our relationship, and the first time I met his mom was in the hospital room for the flu, when he had the flu. And I had such a connection with her because she is just a prayer warrior. She is just very like, God can do everything, God can do anything. And we connected in a level of caring for John, but then John has given me so much in terms of just, I think, self-confidence. And so I think God has used our relationship and the different struggles that we've had with John having his health things and me having my just trauma, that we've been able to work and help each other to grow and be able to be better stewards of God's gifts, and just either whether it's finances or our time or just caring for other people and whatever opportunities come up. And I think I continue to see that even I see probably the last 3 or 4 years. John had a hospitalization where he got sepsis, and it was really, really difficult. And it happened right at the same time that we had put an offer in on this house. And it was accepted. And so we were in the process of trying to sell a home and move, and he got sepsis and he was in the hospital. And so I did something that I'm not normally okay with, because I don't like to ask for help. But I felt God telling me and informing me. He's like, no, this is what your community is for. This is what they're there to help you with. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because that encourages others to then ask you for help. And that's something I've always wanted to do, is I want to be there to help other people. But if I don't open that door, sometimes people are the same as me, where they're afraid to walk through it. So I asked for support and I asked for help, and there were people that I'd never met who showed up to do house projects and things like breaking down a retaining wall and hauling things off to the yard waste area, and others just people from our small group and coming in to help clean and just do all of these things, to also dropping off food for us to be able to eat. And all of these people came out to support, and I just felt so loved, but I also felt just a sense of relief, because I could finally I didn't have to worry about, okay, am I gonna get this house stuff done? I could more focus on what John needed and being able to be at the hospital with all of his needs, versus just having to worry about figuring out how to sell the house and get everything put together and sold. And so that was I'd say the biggest example of community coming around. And I don't think that happens unless people have this deep desire to love God and to then love people. And I think we have this great and amazing opportunity to be able to do that. It just takes people having the courage to ask for help, and in turn being willing to give it, even if it's sometimes you're like, I'm not sure I'll be able to help with this, but I'll give it a shot. I think sometimes it's courageous to ask. So, right away when we started going to Heights, we connected with the small group. And we are the oldest in the small group. But I love the fact that I don't feel the oldest, which is nice. And it's just amazing, because it's a group of people that I don't think I would have met outside of coming to Hope and coming to Heights. And I got an opportunity to kind of get exposed to a number of different I don't think I would have played pickleball unless I was in the small group, or gone to go up to a cabin weekend with people, or gone hiking, or backpack camping. Those are things I would never have just gone out and done, but because I'm with this group of people. I get to experience new things. And I think it's just amazing because those are ways that you can connect with people. And even if it's not something that you're like normally going to do, it's always fun to get the new experience and to share that with someone who really loves it, because then you get to enjoy that with them. And in our small group, they've just always been, I feel like they ask good questions, and people really talk about the whatever, the study is that we're actually digging into. And I think our accountability time is really good because we ask each other, how are you actually doing? You get into the real meat versus having more of the fluff, which I personally really enjoy. And then when it comes to just like broader outside of our small group, like I just think of just like the fun things that they do where they have like April potlucks, right? That's what we're doing right now. And so you get to meet people that aren't in your small group that maybe you might see them on a Sunday, but you don't necessarily get to talk to them, right? And so there's all of these ways that you can connect with different people, and you can build those relationships, and you can build just like appreciation for the diversity of people that we have, and the diversity of backgrounds and where people come from. And I just think it's amazing that all of these different people can come together under the same roof, so to speak, and worship a God and have the same like love of God and the same desire to praise God and to worship him and to care for each other. And I don't think you would get that outside of being gospel and community. Like, I think that's what it is supporting and loving each other, because you're there to worship the same God and he has called you to do that. But it's not like an obligation. It's something you want to do. And so I gave an example of when my husband had sepsis, but then even this year, at the beginning of the year, he had another pretty severe hospitalization. And again, everybody stepped up. And we had someone deliver food to the hospital. And it was, I know that she was probably stressing because it came late and whatever, but the timing of it was actually perfect. So because when we got it was the perfect timing to be able to help us get, like his mom was there. And so we took turns eating. But then that was a very, very long night. So we ended up being up until, 3 or 4 in the morning. And so having the food late was actually God's like provision, because it actually helped us to be sustained through the night, which it was just perfect. And so that, and then also just people coming over to watch our dog, take our dog out, and just the constant prayer chain was just really, really appreciated. And people just checking in, how are you doing? How are you doing? And I think that those are things that make those moments and those circumstances more you're able to be sustained through them. So while it's hard, I felt like I wasn't as overwhelmed by it. And I could still see God's love and God's grace, and I could trust him in the outcomes, and I could trust him with his provision and his care. And, I think sometimes you can look at that and you can say, oh my gosh, why would you ever want that to happen? Or why would God ever do that? And I think I can definitely see people turning in that. And I've definitely done that myself. But I think if you switch your focus from what God isn't doing to what God is doing, I think you start to see where he is active and he is actually sustaining you in ways that maybe you didn't realize. And it's sort of, I usually see that as sort of my first indicator on, am I moving towards God or am I moving away from God? Is the way that I'm looking at things more in the sense of glass half full or glass half empty. And I kind of see it as my like first indicator of like, okay, I think maybe I'm taking the wrong step here. Maybe I need to take a step back. So, yeah.